Yeah, I'll come over, just not right now. Yeah, because I'm about to tune into Tynee Talks. Because unlike what you be talking about, if Tynee's talking about it, it must be worth being talked about.
Yo, it's Tynee Talks. We gonna talk about it right here. Yo, you ready? It's Tynee Talks right here. We gon' talk about it right here. We gon' talk about everything you like. I'ma make it real clear. It's Tynee Talks right here. We gon' talk about it right here. I'ma talk about everything you like. I'ma make it real clear, cause it's Tynee Talks. And I'ma talk about it. Yeah, cause it's Tynee Talks. And I'ma talk about it. And welcome to this episode of Tynee Talks. Remember, Tynee talks and you listen. Today's episode is sponsored by Creative Hair School of Cosmetology. Creative Hair School of Cosmetology is a Better Business Bureau accredited full-service cosmetology school. Creative Hair has been serving the city of Flint, Michigan since 1999. That's 20 years of empowering students and beautifying a community. Their mission is to create a rich educational experience in an effective training environment that empowers students to become licensed and employed professionals in the beauty industry. They are located at 4205 Miller Road, Flint, Michigan, 48507, and they can be reached at 810-787-4247. Thank you, Creative Hair, for sponsoring today's episode, which is entitled, Are Black Greek Letter Organizations Still Relevant? The State of Black Greeks. And today joining me, I have two phenomenal guests. I have someone who is a part of the Greek Letter Organization, myself, as well as my guest, Chanelle Yarber, who I'm going to talk to about in a moment. And we also have Mr. Rogers. He's pretty much become a staple on Tynee Talks. And
I like hanging out around here.
He's a GDI. For those who don't know.
Whoa.
That's a goddamn individual right there.
Whoa. I'll take it.
Chanelle joins us. She is the CEO of Bright Girl Media, a digital marketing agency for small businesses. Join the ranks of other bright girls who are leveraging the branding and marketing tools within the Bright Girls in Business membership, from social media marketing, templates, websites, automatic social media posting, blog management, and so much more. Chanelle is dedicated to helping you build a brand and business that is so powerful, it does most of the legwork for you. Okay, you better shine bright like a diamond, girl.
That's right.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. We're so happy to have you here, Chanelle.
I'm happy to be here.
Let's get into it.
Yes.
So for those of you throughout the show, you may hear me say BGLO, which means Black Greek Letter Organizations. And you might hear me say NPHC, which is the National Pan-Hellenic Council, which is the Black Greek Letter Organizations. So a little tiny background. The National Pan-Hellenic Council, NPHC, is a collaborative organization of 9 historically African-American international, we out here, Greek-lettered fraternities and sororities. The 9 NPHC, as known as the Divine 9, includes Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, the first and the finest, Kappa Alpha Psi, Pmega Psi Phi, Delta Sigma Theta, Phi Beta Sigma, Zeta Phi Beta, Sigma Gamma Rho, and Iota Phi Theta.
Wait. First of all,
no shade, no tea.
Oh, really?
Man.
I don't want to exclude anybody. I love all of the Divine Nine. But I
Everybody's
feel,
gonna be able to see the video footage. They need to see how this played out.
I ain't
Man.
saying nothing. We just gonna get into this conversation
Man.
because I got enough already. Okay.
I love being this outside observer. Just
wait a minute. Did I
learn
just
what
try
I
it?
see. Ooh.
You tried it.
I absolutely tried it.
It's okay.
Listen, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for anybody who feels slighted out there. We're all.
I know.
Oh!
Look at them, man. They might as well come real.
All right. Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated is a
wildin'.
non-shady organization. We are not shady.
Shots fired everywhere. This is
Pew,
dangerous.
pew, pew. I need that. I need the pew, pew, pew. Okay.
this is
So I
funny.
wanted to. Y'all need help. All right. I wanted to have this conversation because I was invited on another podcast called Carefree Black Nerd. Shout out to Rain. And we reviewed the movie School Days,
Oh, okay.
which is going to be airing in November. So y'all be on the lookout for that.
Right.
And, basically the whole arc of the film is a fictional Black Greek letter organization. And so just watching it and even just talking to people, everyone has their idea of what, Black Greek letter organizations represent or, where they came from, what they do. Are they still relevant? Are they still important? What is the purpose? What is the point? Do they only just wear their letters? Do
Are
they
they gangs?
Yeah. Ooh,
Yeah.
get into it. Are they gangs? Do they just like to wear the cute outfits, the cute letters? Do they just like to step?
Right, right.
What is their purpose? And what is your initial thoughts on that, Chanelle?
My initial thoughts are what was always told to me in undergrad, which is do your research. So if people really paid attention and they didn't go based upon stereotypes or what you've seen one member of an organization do or how they portray themselves or whatever the case, and you really dug deep into why BGLOs had to be formed in the first place, you would understand. And then just look at some of, the work that we've done in the communities and figure that part out first, and then you would answer your own questions.
That was a phenomenal response, and I like that you said that why they were created in the first place. According to diverseeducation.com, they did an article entitled "Black Greeks: A Legacy in Peril," and they said during the time of their inception, the purpose of Black Greek letter organizations was clear. Amid racial oppression and segregation, these elite groups of educated Blacks assumed the charge of activism, scholarship, social uplift, and service. How do you feel about that? Because it's saying back then it was clear, and I feel like they're trying to say right now it's not clear.
I don't think that that's true. I don't think that is true at all. What I will say in candor is that I think that as time has progressed and we have bought into this illusion that we have made it as Black people, which daily we can see.
We have not.
We have not arrived.
We have not overcome.
We have not overcome. But I think that some of us, especially more elite or, college educated, upwardly mobile Black people have bought into this idea that we have arrived. And then sometimes we become elitist toward other Black people.
Yeah.
Okay. Like, I don't know if y'all saw the episode of Blackish that came on Thursday or Wednesday or whenever.
The most recent one?
Yeah.
No, can you inform us?
Okay, so the episode was about Dre being invited to join, I think it was Premier Noir was like this group.
Okay.
Right?
Like a social club.
Yeah, like a social club for upwardly mobile Black people. And at first he was like diabolically opposed. And I'm looking at my co-guest over here because he,
You haven't said
a
a word.
You haven't said a word on air.
Okay.
We'll get into that. Anyway.
Okay.
So he was invited because somebody saw him at like a farmer's market doing something that would,
would grant him
identify
access.
Yeah. And so he was like, I don't want to do this. I'm from Compton, and when I grew up, they wouldn't accept me. This wouldn't even be something that they would look at me as being a part of their organization. But now that I've, grown in my career, this and that, now you want me.
Right.
Right. So he ends up joining, the family joins, and then they invite Charlie, which if y'all watch the show is his other black. Shout out to Dion Cole.
Shout out to Slap. Shout out to Dion.
Man,
Dion Cole is a fool.
I'm glad you had to say Dion Cole because I don't watch Blackish.
So Dion Cole's
but I'm familiar with his character.
It plays Charlie,
right.
Who is blackity black.
Yeah, he's super black. Okay. So they go to golf and he invites Charlie along with him. And Charlie comes out there in pure Charlie form.
Of course.
And the point of me bringing this whole thing up is that it showed the delineation between, I guess, I'm putting air quotes, elite blacks and regular black folk. And I think that over time, as we've bought into this thinking that we've become something or we have a little something, we've lost the essence of the fight that our founders
founded
our organizations on.
Wow. What say you?
Would you call me a GDI?
Yeah, Mr. GDI.
Wow.
And I say that because in Greekdom, if you're non-Greek, we just say, you're just an individual. No shade, no tea. You're
One
just
that is damned by God, apparently.
No.
Oh, anyway.
no, not God. Damn, get
damn.
with a GAT.
Gosh darn.
Yeah,
I'm with you. Anyway.
That's the Texas way.
Oh man. I like when you were talking about just the spirit of where it comes from. There's a conversation we were already having. The spirit of where the black fraternities and sororities come from. You talking about people coming, like we mentioned, fresh out of slavery. Not your founders, but they are the children of people
slaves.
who are fresh out of slavery.
Yeah.
And so you're talking about a time period that is definitely not like now, and we have not overcome, but it was something else. In the history books, it's called the nadir, because it is the lowest point. That because we are not slaves, so we are not commodities. We want to prove that not only are we equal, but we can be better than you, and they know it.
Right.
And they know it. And so that's why they end up erecting all of this Jim Crow legislation and stuff like that. And we're out there, the children of this is coming out to prove something. And so the ones that get to college, they're like, oh, y'all do that Greek thing over there? So what's that about? Oh, the Greek's supposed to be good? We can rock that too.
Right.
And you start to see this coming. And so, yeah, I see the spirit. I see the spirit of what it is. But sitting back when I came up, when I watched School Days at the time, when I watched it, I didn't like Greeks. What it came off as, I was like, I don't want to bang with them. I like Lawrence Fishburne's character. I can't remember his name. What was his name?
I don't even remember.
Dap.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you.
But I was feeling Dap. And you know what I'm saying? When I was watching that movie in high school, I'm like, I'm rocking with them. I understand them. And then as I came up, it became more of a just understanding and looking at history and stuff like that. And then just noticing the elitism that you pulled out. It's like, it seemed like some of the people who strove to be in there were so, with their nose up in the air, or cliquish, or simps. It was just weird.
Desperate.
So the era I came in didn't know that spirit that you're talking about. I'm just looking at them like, when I get to college, I'm looking at these people like, oh, y'all off. Y'all something else. Because I did the gang thing in high school.
And we'll get into that. I'm glad that you brought that up.
I want to talk about that too.
We're gonna roll it around.
Go ahead.
But as Terrence mentioned about the spirit and the conditions back then, our founder of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, Ethel Hedgeman Lau, was born in 1887. Literally,
2 days out of slavery,
2 seconds out of slavery. Okay, just achoo. Okay, we out of slavery, right? And so, as also Terrence mentioned, like we were trying to prove something, and I feel like that has been the plight of Black folks to this point in 2019. We're always trying to compete with them, like I know the hashtag Black Girls Run too. We always got to say we do something too.
We just do it
with the TOO. All right, in addition to, and as he was mentioning, like they had their Greek organization, so we were like, we could do that too. It has been rumored that Ethel Hedgeman Lau had a white professor who was part of Delta Zeta, and Delta Zeta is a white sorority,
and their colors are pink and green.
Their colors are pink and green. They have the turtle frogs. The turtles. We have the frogs. It's so much similarities, to the organizations. But it was kind of like we can do that too. We were fighting for something. We didn't want to just be known as sharecroppers.
Right.
So we were going to college, and then most of the sororities and fraternities were founded at Howard University, which is a historically Black college and university. So when, according to this article, it also says that every year Black college students rush to join the Greek letter organizations of their choice, oblivious of the danger that may lie ahead.
Danger. Wow.
Right.
That's danger. Okay.
And so I want to ask you, what made you go Greek? Because this article is painting us in a very negative light, as if we're dangerous and we're non-relevant. And I'll say for me, what made me join were the women before me. When I was in high school, I was a part of the ACATS Teen Club, which is, a teen club that is sponsored through the graduate chapter of the local chapter where I was from, which is Zeta Beta Omega of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. And we were doing community service. We were taught etiquette. We were taught how to carry ourselves as ladies in school, outside of school. We did church visits and learned poems like A Phenomenal Woman by Maya Angelou. And, not only did my advisor, who ended up being my GA in undergrad too, she embodied everything that it was: femininity, beauty, brains. She was very into articulating your words and enunciating and, just walking with your head up.
Yeah.
No matter what, keeping your hair done. She stayed with a good flat iron, okay? And so that made me say, okay, yes, when I grow up, there is no other choice for me. I'm going to be a woman of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. This woman takes her time every Monday to come be with little high school girls. And high school girls can be
rough.
A whole
I know I was.
trip and a half. Attitudes and hormones and attitudes and hormones. And she dedicated her time to ensure that, that we were going to be successful young women. So that was, what made me want to join and give back to my community and do service. So you rushed, you pledged. What made you do it? I'm pretty sure you didn't think danger lied ahead.
No. Danger. When you said that kind of, I was like, danger. Danger. And for the record, Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated is a non-hazing organization. Let's just put that
Period,
out
Pooh.
All right. So, what made me want to join AKA? Much like you, I grew up and I saw other women who were poised. They were carrying themselves well. They were mentoring me. They were my teachers, my principals, friends, mothers who were members. And they just it was just something they had. They just had it. They had that thing.
The je ne sais quoi.
Yeah. And it just, it was something to look up to. It was something to aspire to. And I remember when I first got, going back to your point about the whole gang thing, I grew up around gangs and stuff, and I remember being on campus, and I still had a boyfriend back home. He didn't know. Yeah. He didn't know what, pledging and being Greek and all that stuff was. Right. And for the record, also, I was initiated in grad, but I'm gonna get to that. So he didn't know, and I was interested, and he was like, "Oh, you just joining a glorified gang. You trying to do da." He had that whole mentality, and it was very discouraging because I'm like, you trying to, he was really like down on me and trying to talk me out of it. And so time went on, and I was not able to join in undergrad because of other circumstances. They weren't on the yard for a while, and just whatever. Graduated, and it literally took me 16 years from the time that I was really interested on the yard until I became a member.
Right.
And as an adult, as I've gotten out of the whole belonging piece of undergrad and, what that meant, because I feel like as a 19, 20-year-old, you're still becoming and you're still learning yourself, and that becomes a part of your identity and your friend circle and all of that at a younger age. But I was in my 30s. And so I realized throughout all that time that the service and the sisterhood and the connection and the mentorship and the network is what I aspired to. And so that's why I stuck after it, even as an adult or an older adult.
All right. I love that. I know why you didn't join Mr. Rogers. They just were, well, you kind of mentioned it. I'm not, you mentioned that.
I mean, I basically, not at all. But I think what you said about being older, speaking to the article that you mentioned, and he said they didn't know they were going into peril. I think y'all could admit that the maturity level, the ones that are in peril are typically the ones who are dealing with younger people who don't have the same kind of values of a 30-year-old.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And so, there can be peril because these are immature people
doing things to
doing some
other
things.
That's true.
And it's
influential
That's true.
other that's people. We talked a little bit about what Greeks were birthed out of when they came in the early 1900s, and the last link of the Divine Nine came in 1963. And so many things were going on. We had to fight against Jim Crow, hosing, dogs, housing, all of those things. And back then they were addressing it. They were marching, they were joining the SCLC. You had Martin Luther King, who was a member of Alpha Phi Alpha. You had Jesse Jackson, who is a Q. Just a lot of people who are prominent that we learn in our history books. They are a part of Black Greek letter organizations. How are BGLOs addressing those issues today? And are they doing it effectively? Because it seems like we don't have dogs being sicked on us, but we have police officers. Lynching were happening in the early 1900s. Modern day lynching for me are the shootings. How are we answering to the call? We still have housing issues going on. Back then, you couldn't live in a certain neighborhood. Today, you can't live in a certain neighborhood. And not only that, we have issues of the high cost of living in metropolitan areas such as the DFW. But not only that, even in smaller communities like where I'm from Flint, Michigan, and because of gentrification, post-water crisis, now they're building stuff and shooting the prices up the roof. And it's is it our purpose as Greek letter organizations to meet that call like we did back then, or what?
I think it absolutely is. And that, if I can be candid, is a frustration of mine, because I feel like it's so many of us, and we have ascended from where our ancestors and our founders were and what they were capable of doing just by rate of the time that they lived in. We all have a little bit of money. We might not be rich, but we got a little bit of money. We got some education. We got some connections. We have our brain power. I just feel like Black people are we're superhuman. We've overcome way too much to not be, okay?
Right.
And still overcoming, because it's active. It's like once we do one thing, it's like, they did that. Well, let's do this to them.
Yeah.
Surprise.
But I think that we don't recognize our own strength and our own power in numbers, and what we could really affect change to do, generationally. And that's a frustration of mine. I'm like, if we could just get in a think tank and get our heads together and pool our resources together, it's so much that we could do. I mean, I just think about, I'm in a chapter of 150 or so women. 150 women pooling their money together in some type of maybe a investment fund or something, or purchasing real estate, or helping to save a community from gentrification.
Right.
That's huge.
That would be so huge.
And that's just one chapter. And we have 8 in Dallas.
Right.
Oh, wow.
And we're the smallest.
Right.
So I'm like, if we had a focus, like a dedicate, like a laser focus on a topic, an issue, and I think for our community as Black people, and you can tell me what you think, because I'm interested, because I see your wheels turning over. I think for us, our fight, it was rights and civil rights and all that, but I think at the crux of it, it is economic parity.
Yeah.
Because if we have money, then we have influence. We can put people in place. We can do. It's so much more that you can do. But if you don't have money and you just out here with a sign, hollering.
I want to get into Terrence's response, but before I get into that, I like that you say that the economic empowerment of it all is the reason why Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated. People really think it was about the black-white issue, but the powers that be love to keep the black-white thing going. They'll put you on TV for that. Yeah. It's when you talk about economic equity. He was trying to bring poor people together, and poor people don't have a color. So he was trying to bring the poor whites and the poor blacks, and he was gaining traction, and that's what got him assassinated. And you're right, economic power. I remember Warren Ballantine, who is a member of I love him
Phi Beta Sigma.
Yeah, he's a member of Phi Beta Sigma. He was on the radio talking about economic empowerment every week, and then he got canceled because quickly. I mean, I'm talking about canceled. Quickly, because he was talking that good stuff, and the good stuff is the thing that will move us forward as a community. And it's like they snatched those things off the air. But what would you say to what Chanelle had to say?
Oh, when you were talking, I was just thinking about one of my favorite professors at Florida A&M University, Theodore Hemingway. He's African American studies professor, and he would, sometimes he would just teach, and he's just rambling off history. But now he's an alpha, well, he was an alpha, rest of it. He would always just say, man, if you spend $1,000 on paraphernalia and all these other little things, and now you got a pyramid on your chest, and he's calling out these young ladies who belong, they're deltas, but he's an alpha, and he's passing out to everybody, but he's saying you spend all this money on this. But just imagine if y'all just decided, you know what, no more paraphernalia. Let's just take that money and put it here. He's like, you could do so much more. He spoke with so much disappointment for fraternities and sororities. This is a member. And he was just like, oh man, I feel like we wasted it. I feel like we wasted something. So I can understand how coming together and seeing these institutions, and you're like, man, if you could just cross over and do just a little more. The coming together part, the organizing part, the grouping, that's all fine. You know what I'm saying? That's beautiful. People like to organize, but it's that purpose. It's just like, so you're saying, are Black Greeks fulfilling that purpose? Not with like direct intention. I don't know if that ever was a thing, because it wasn't like, being honest. Yeah. Did the alphas really support Martin Luther King when he was doing with his thing? I'm going to lean towards no. I'm going to lean towards he wasn't getting
if I could just hide under the
support.
I mean, I'm loving it. Come on, speak truth to power.
Because we're talking about elitism. We're talking about people who made it. We're talking about people
talking about respectability politics.
Yes.
That's why I'm like,
we're talking about people who got into a position. So a lot of young people would say, well, why you want to join? This is the college answer when they were freshmen. And they would say, well, I want to join for the networking opportunities. Well, that means that someone got in the door and got a job and have the ability to get you somewhere where they're not going to hold on to it if they start railing against the system. So.
Chanelle face. The more you know. Okay, where's the rainbow? Listen, what you just did right there. What you just did right there. Oh,
so I want to go back. I want to, because you just
spoke a word.
He did, and when you brought up the respectability politics, this is something that really, and I say this and I can criticize organizations because I'm a part of them.
Yes.
And because I love them. It's
Yeah.
like family, you know, and you see family doing
Right,
something, you're
right.
like, hey,
You gotta
bro,
say something.
I can't let you be out here with your, you know,
I can't. You didn't brush
with
your
toilet
teeth
paper
today.
on your shoe.
Brush
I
your
can't do
teeth.
it. Yeah. So when
My son.
when a lot of the things were, you know, that's funny. Don't call a baby out like that.
Sorry.
No, seriously. So when a lot of the things were happening, like Ferguson and Trayvon Martin and all of that stuff, I remember.
Don't you
Y'all know
do
where
it.
I'm about to go.
I know where you going.
Don't you
I know where you
say
going.
it. Okay, say
though.
it.
Okay.
Say it.
I remember certain organizations
Certain ones.
saying, don't go out there representing with your paraphernalia on.
Yep.
That is something to me because I'm saying, what do you think that is going to, what is that going to do if I do that? What is that going to say? What are you trying to avoid?
Right. Who are you?
Who are you trying to
Who are you?
please?
Oh, okay, Chanelle. We're gonna put a pin.
I just had to go there
Throw a
because
pin.
it bothered me. I'm
Listen, it is because what we have is people married to a corporate dollar.
Well,
Did I shoot everybody?
Because
Okay.
be honest.
Be honest.
'Cause I'm not just a member of my sorority. I'm a member of another civil rights organization, and
yeah, them too.
them too.
Yeah,
I'm
them
gonna
They're
say
full of them too.
them too.
And I think
too.
that therein lies right there the difference between back then and right now. Was back then we didn't have any corporate sponsors. It was pure, unadulterated. We gotta grassroots. We gotta move our people forward, as you said earlier, with our own resources. But when you start to get resources from other people, it's just like Terrence and I talked about some things that he wanted to do. And I'm like, well, solicit X, Y, and Z. And he's like, well, when you solicit from X, Y, and Z, then you're subject to their rules and how they want you to distribute their funding or what you can or cannot do, essentially. So if they're saying don't wear your letters while you're out there, they're saying our sponsors, whether it be Coca-Cola or whomever, pick one. They don't like that.
Yeah.
And these corporate organizations can pick and choose when they want to. Whenever you see them being behind the cause, it's a little bit of propaganda behind it.
There's definitely it is proper. It is what it is.
Heap.
I literally just had a conversation right before you walked in to the studio, and we were talking about because I went to school for broadcast journalism, and I switched majors, I switched focus, all that when 9/11 happened because I was like, they're lying. They on the news. They're lying. I don't have the proof. Look, I don't have the proof. They're lying.
Or you're going to be a conspirator because they're going to lock you up.
And the conversation that we just had is that the person I was talking to was a broadcaster at the time, and he had some leads on a story and was told, no, you're not about to tell that story because that's implicating our sponsors. It was the truth, the absolute truth.
Yeah.
But no.
Yeah.
And that's sad, and I hate, because it's a catch-22, right? Our organizations are doing great things, right? And it's they're getting this corporate funding to do other things, but maybe not the things that need the most attention. So when you go to the emergency room, they do what is called triage. You're gonna come in and state your problem, and whoever has the most severe problem, they're gonna address that first. And what we're doing in our organization is not triaging situations. And because of the corporate dollar, we're going with the minimum. We're going with the stitch.
Yeah.
The flesh wound. Okay, let's cover that up instead of the person who's having the heart attack.
Oh, let's help these kids get into college, but forget the fact that they about to have $100,000 worth of student loans
debt
when they walk out.
Yeah.
But we ain't gonna go there. Am I shooting it up today?
Shooting up the club, and we're both a part of these. Go ahead.
I just want to say that this conversation has gone way different
than what you thought it was. He thought we was got to be up in here,
But no, but
I thought
like
there was about to be a line there.
We'll do that later. We're definitely gonna stroll out of here.
Let me tell you one thing. I know I've said a lot. I've made a lot of critiques. I love my organization. I love being a part of it. I love the service that we do. I love getting together and being around my sorors. I love it.
I met Chanelle at a Greek outing, you know, and we were like, we are kindred spirits, you know, and again, it comes with the networking. We're networking now,
right?
You know, she's on my platform, she's mentioned me on her platform, different things like that. So it is helpful, and you know, we're not talking about it because when we say they, we mean us. You know, we're a part of the organization as well. So maybe we could speak up a little more. Maybe we could get the side eye at a meeting, and maybe I could go pay my dues, which I plan on doing in December. Now. You know, shade to me.
Look, let me put my glasses down.
Chanelle is active.
Oh my God.
I have a son. I need a corporate dollar. Okay.
Look, I might
sponsor me, but
January.
y'all ain't gonna shut me up because y'all been okay. That's another story. But we understand. So we're not saying it's a they, what they are doing, because if you point the finger, there are three fingers pointing back at you, and we understand that. So what can we do more? I really wish that there was something I could do about the housing crisis. I tell Terrence this all the time. Like, for me, that is the most pressing issue because it comes back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? You got to have your food, you got to have your shelter.
Yeah.
You have to have somewhere to live to feel safe and secure. And you can't feel secure if you feel like your house, or your apartment, you're going to get kicked out because of market value.
Right.
What
Rent
the hell
going
is that?
Up every other month, and
literally it goes up daily.
Going up.
It goes up daily, market value. I didn't learn about that till I moved here. I was like, what the fudge?
Yeah.
What the hell is
if
that?
I rent my apartment on this day as opposed to 2 weeks from now, it could be completely
different, lower or higher. Yeah. So, there are issues that we have to meet. And I think that we cracked the code right there. The conditions of past are still going on. The difference is that there is elitism and respectability politics that, are just going on with that. In addition, Dr. Walter Kimbrough, author of Black Greek 101, The Culture, Customs, and Challenges of Black Fraternities and Sororities, says the efforts to stop hazing have been ineffective. And it's just a matter of time before another hazing tragedy occurs. He goes on to say street culture has infiltrated college life, and some of these chapters have become like street gangs, jumping members in. Kimbrough, a member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, has pondered the idea of dismantling BGLOs on the undergraduate level, where the hazing takes place. A resurrection, he quotes, a resurrection may be necessary if this type of behavior persists, end quote.
Whoa.
So that goes along what you two were saying earlier about I pledged undergrad. I literally was 19 years old, and you said you were 30. What do you feel about this statement here? Should we dismantle undergrad? And I only say that because the organization started at the undergraduate level.
That's heavy. That was a loaded statement.
Yeah.
And I might have to think on that. Now, what I will say is, no, I don't think that it needs to be dismantled.
I know that's a strong vocabulary word.
But he also said resurrected.
He did say resurrected.
He said a resurrection may be necessary if this type of behavior persists. And I think he's talking about, some of the organizations, hazing activities, although all Divine Nine are non-hazing organizations, there are some people out there where death has occurred.
Yes. I mean, and I'm going to be honest, we are vigilant about that. Like, and I'm not saying it because I'm a member. I'm not saying it because it's PC or I'm trying to, we really are vigilant.
Absolutely.
About hazing because
no one wants to get that phone call that they sent their child off to a university.
Yeah.
And to do something that maybe they talked about at the dinner table, and then the next thing you know, you get a call that this child died at the hands of some craziness.
Yeah. Yeah.
As she thinks about her question, what say you about that?
I mean, I understand. I'm just, as an outsider, just looking at it, I'm like, I understand that, especially in modern times, your fire, your buzz, your energy comes from the undergrad level. Mm-hmm. But then the more seasoning and the program part, the part where you do serve and stuff, you start seeing that with your older members a lot more intentionally. Mm-hmm. Where with the younger ones, they need to do it so they can look good, so they can, you know what I'm saying? Mm. And we did this. It's not with intention. It's just a kind of a thing. But as they get older and more mature, it starts to get into those things. So I can understand. But I think as a high school teacher, and especially now I teach in a suburb of black kids, where a lot of them, they are either children of Greeks or familiar with Greeks. They're familiar, staff is Greek and things like that. But then they say, well, I want to join. You say, why? And then it was like, I don't know, it's just cuz. And I'm like, there's the disconnect. And this is how you get to the hazing. Because they are familiar with the hazing. What they're not familiar with is a good reason to join.
Yeah.
They're familiar with the jackets. They're familiar with everything else.
Except the service.
They can't say, I want to join the AKAs because I know that they do this, this, and this.
Yeah.
Or a young man might say, I want to be just like Martin Luther King. He was an alpha. Or I want to be like Carter G. Woodson or W.E.B. Du Bois. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Other Greeks. But that don't even come into their mind. And that's, maybe it was bigger and more important at a different era. So as a teacher I work with, Mr. Cameron, he is on Mega, and he told me that he was just like, this image of the roughneck and whatever, he was just like, that's not what he was introduced to. Like, he was introduced to it by older gentlemen, and they didn't really like this wild boy kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
He's just like, so clearly something changed, and it became something else. And now maybe that happens only at the undergrad level, and at least it's not something to say, you got to get the undergrad under control or something. You got to deal with that.
I think that there's something to be said about the relations between the undergrads and the grads. Mm-hmm. No, we can't be on campus and we can't babysit them. We have our, we're adults. We have our own
full-time
lives.
jobs.
We have full-time jobs, families, and, life, real life. But the relationships, like really pulling these young ladies, pulling these young men under our wing and mentoring and getting to know who they are. Why do you want to be a part of it?
What is your history?
Yeah, putting a standard on membership.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And not the standard of just having a B+ average.
Yeah. Like a real, we say morals, and high ethical standards, and, that's something that we say. But really finding out who are you bringing into this organization and why? Are they just your cousin and you just decided to sign off on them and whatever? Or is this particular person somebody who came up in that old school way of thinking, and they think that is the way, and if you don't do it this way, then you ain't real, and that's the thing too.
And I was gonna actually get into that, because I was gonna, some people are only joining to feel better than others. Literally, it's I'm better than you. And as you're saying, some people did it one way, and as opposed to another way. A lot of the undergrads don't want to listen to a grad unless they know that grad came through undergrad, and then they feel a way about the person who only went through grad. It's just a whole thing, and that's through the whole Divine Nine. That's all of the organizations. I've seen organizations treat young ladies bad if they did one way as opposed to another way, shun them. I've seen across the gamut, to the point where some ladies and young men denounced the organization, all of these denouncements.
Help us, Jesus.
And so that's where it becomes, are these, letter wearers. And then, as he was saying, that he works in high school, and so they only know stepping letters. Yeah. They don't know about social uplift. And now they're who they say they want to aspire to be back in a different era where it's like, I want to be the Lena Horne. She was a part of X, Y, and Z. I want to be Martin Luther King. He was part of Alpha Alpha. Now they're aspiring to be like a reality TV star or someone who's steeped in a certain type of behavior, or they're only, and I wanted to talk about discretion. There was a point of discretion when I came through. And now it's like I have to tell the world what I did. I have to tell them everything that went on in order to be, accepted. And I just feel like it needs to just go back to discretionary things.
Yeah. Yeah. Some stuff you just are not supposed to talk about.
No, you're not. So
it just is. And that does not, taking it away from the Greek organizations, I'm putting it on the Black community. That's something that we suffer in and suffer for is discretion. It is us keeping secrets in our communities.
Yeah.
Right. We do it as a point of protection, and this is our thing. This is our family. So what goes on in this house stays in this house.
Right.
But then when that is perpetuated and it turns negative, then it's like who do you cry out to, or who do you
right.
whatever. And I think that is a part of why the hazing has been a thing, is because you're not supposed to say anything.
Yeah.
But we just have to get to a point of mental and emotional maturity and stability, to where you don't feel like I don't understand. I don't know the connection between me beating somebody up and them being my sister. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I mean, maybe because I'm an only child, I didn't have a sister that I beat up on or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's like, how did you just like beat me up yesterday, like bloody me, and then today it's like, oh, hey, sis.
The whole build you, whole tear you down to build you up idea. Seems a little, I don't know, bipolar, mentally ill.
I don't know. And I know that there are people, I have friends that have gone through it and whatever, and, because of the belonging piece.
Yeah.
But I think that is something that we definitely need to address, because it's really not what we're here for.
We really are, as the top of the article states, that we are definitely here to lead the charge of activism. And I know we'll get back to the forefront without someone saying you can't wear your letters, because that's what propelled us to the forefront. To when you saw people with their sweaters on or their hats on, their paraphernalia back then, and you were like, oh, they were doing that. I want to be with them. I want to be with those brothers. I want to be with those sisters. They were on the front page of those papers that got them to where we are now, with over over 100,000 members in each organization, because we were on outfit with our letters on, with our colors adorned, being right there at the front of the line. And we're going to get back to the scholarship, the social uplift, and service. I got some closing remarks before we close up this wonderful talk of our Black Greek letter organization, still relevant, the state of the Black Greeks. And before I say my closing remarks, what are your final thoughts?
Oh, I was just, I like the conversation. Like I said, it went totally different than I thought.
You ready to join the organization now?
Are you ready now?
Come on.
We'll help you.
No. Nah, not at all. But like I say, I love what Black people do. I love, organizing and stuff like that. I look at the Greek and sorority organizations as like an extension all the way back to the continent. And then people just need to see the cultural continuity of what we brought from Africa, the guilds, the Egbes, the Asafos. When we came, we brought these, the Society of Hunters or wherever, basket makers or whatever it was. We organized and we had these groupings, and that's a good thing. Mm-hmm. And I would love to be able to say, yeah, it came back. You know what I'm saying? But I it's all good. It's all good.
Yeah. To piggyback off of that, I think anytime Black people can get together on one accord, it's a great thing.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Anytime I can get together with my brothers and my sisters, and we are there for one purpose, and we are fulfilling that purpose, it is a great thing. And I think by and large, that is what we're doing. And I think we are still relevant, and I think we are still making a difference. And we are still making that. We are still influential. We are.
Absolutely.
Hands down. We are. You can't say that we are not. I think we all have work to do collectively, individually. But to answer the question, which was, are Black Greek letter organizations still relevant? Yes, we are. That's my final thought.
Period, Pooh.
Period.
What's going on, young world? It's your man Mickey Wallace letting you know to tune in to the princess of the podcast, my homegirl Tynee Talks. Because if she talking about it, it must be worth talking about. Go get them.
So in my final closing remarks, I absolutely believe that Black Greek letter organizations are still prevalent and relevant in today's 21st century. They're just as important as they were in the 20th century when all of these things were happening, and there are so many things continuing to happen right now, especially in the as we call it, the Trump era. According to the Urban Scholar, I'm going to leave you with these final remarks. In the age of social media, Black Greek letter organizations, aka BGLOs, purpose and impact in the community has been subjected to hazing deaths, being less vocal of community issues, promoting social events, and participating in the tradition of stepping. Many have questioned the relevancy of BGLOs as not being beneficial, since African Americans have a myriad of opportunities to achieve academically and gain leadership and organizational skills without joining BGLOs. Black Greek life is in the eye of the beholder, and we are still relevant and important to our communities, particularly for our youth. Youth, predominantly in underprivileged communities of color, are suffering from the acute traumatic stress disorder with fearing police, school to prison pipeline, and not assessing higher education achievement due to the lack of mentorship, is what you mentioned earlier, and financial assistance. These are two things that we know that we can do. Although all the problems our youth face cannot be solved overnight, many BGLOs have strategies and programs to help our youth achieve the American dream. And I think that's where it is. And I'm going to name off a few initiatives that all the Divine Nine have going on. Phi Alpha has the Go to High School, Go to College program, which was established in 1922. Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated has the Ascend, which is designed to motivate, engage, and assist high school students in reaching their maximum potential. So in your area, it might be called one thing. In my area, it was considered the ACATS Teen Club. Kappa Alpha Psi has the Guide Right program, which is a program for educational and occupational guidance of youth, primarily inspirational and informational in character. It extends to high schools and colleges alike. Next, we have Delta Sigma Theta. The Delta Academy was created out of an urgent sense to bold action, which was needed to save young females between the ages of 11 and 14 from the perils of academic failure and low self-esteem. They also created the Delta Gyms for adolescent at-risk African-American youth ages 14 through 18. Phi Beta Sigma has the Sigma Beta Club, which develops wholesome values, leadership skills, social and cultural awareness for the youth. The Zeta Phi Beta sorority has the Arcanets, which is a high school age program for young ladies who demonstrate an interest in the goals and ideas of scholarship, sisterly love, and community service. They also have the Pearlettes for girls ages 9 and under. Sigma Gamma Rho has the Sigma Youth Symposium, and the Iota Phi Theta has the Iota Intelligent, Outstanding, Talented Achievers Youth Alliance. So again, we are reaching back and pulling forward. We are still maintaining what we did in the 20th century and propelling it in the 21st century, because the youth is where it's at. Without youth, I don't think change happens, and it starts with the youth. And all of the Divine Nine organizations are continuing to fight and empower the youth. So I think that is just phenomenal. In true Tynee Talks fashion, we got to do our shout out. So Chanelle, since you're a guest of my show, go ahead, give your shout outs, girl.
Ooh, I'm shouting out. Who am I shouting out? I don't know. My business. How about I do that? Shout out to Bright Girl Media. You can find me on all social media platforms at Bright Girl Media. So that is a digital marketing agency, and I primarily work with small businesses. So that's who I'm shouting out today.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers.
Oh, shout out to y'all. I love a dope conversation. I was glad I was invited to a dope conversation. Shout out to the young men out there. They held it down.
They did. Our children are here.
Got Kai and AJ. I had to thread AJ,
Of
but
course.
that's all right. But he did well. So hope he has a great Halloween activity.
Yes. Yeah, shout out to Kai and AJ and even Taj, who's not here, but we know you're here in spirit. Shout out to all of the Divine Nine, especially Alpha, Kappa Alpha, Sorority Incorporated. Hit us with the ski-wee. Hello. And I'm just so thankful and happy that I am a part of this sisterhood established back in 1908, and we're still great out here in these streets. Tynee Talks does have a contest going on right now called the Crazy Ass Stories Contest. You can submit that to tyneetalks@gmail.com. That's TYNEETALKS.com for your chance to win free Tynee Talks merchandise. All you have to do is submit a crazy story, from a dating story, a family story, childhood story. Maybe your kids did some crazy things. Just submit the story for your chance to win Tynee Talks merchandise. And then it can be featured on my Crazy Ass Stories episode, which will be airing in November. Again, I want to thank Chanelle, CEO of Bright Girl Media, a digital marketing agency for small businesses. If you have a small business, I will put her links and information in the about this episode part for the show, which is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, and SoundCloud. So you can reach out to her for all of your needs. And until next time, remember that Tynee talks and you listen. Yo, it's Tynee Talks. We gonna talk about it right here. Yo, you ready? It's Tynee Talks right here. We gon' talk about it right here. We gon' talk about everything you like. I'ma make it real, real clear. It's Tynee Talks right here. We gon' talk about it right here. I'm gonna talk about everything you like.
Yo.